You're listening to Design Between the Lines, the only design and home furnishings podcast where we talk with the movers and shakers, industry innovators, and lifetime legends of the home furnishings industry. It's here that I get a chance to sit and chat with the influencers shaping the industry into what it is today, and to learn a little bit more about life in their world. Libby Langdon wears many hats as an interior designer, product designer, author, and makeover television personality, as well as the creative force behind New York City-based design firm Libby Interiors, Inc. She has licensed collections with Braxton Color, Bradburn Gallery, Christorama, and most recently, 4 outdoor collections for North Cape. Her designs have been featured in Architectural Digest, House Beautiful, Traditional Home, Better Homes and Gardens, and on NBC's Today Show, HGTV, The View, and The Rachel Ray Show. Libby, glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, John. I'm really glad to be here.
It's terrific having you here. And we're in High Point, where this is being recorded today, and where all of our podcasts are recorded, I might add, and your hometown.
Absolutely. That's what makes it extra special to be here, honestly, is growing up in High Point. You can't help but grow up and have the home furnishings industry in your blood. It's just what you grow up knowing. And so to come back now and be a part of the industry in a lot of different areas of the industry, it just makes it that much more special. Who influenced you? Now, was it your mom and dad? Were there others along the way as you were a youngster growing up in this great city of furniture? Definitely. My dad was in textiles. My mom was a designer and still is. And that for sure was the biggest influence. And I remember sometimes my dad would come back from a trip and he'd have these big black cases with wheels and they'd be full of fabric. And I remember he'd open them up and we'd all sit on my mom and dad's bed and go through the fabrics and look at them. And this was in his days of loving everything was plaid and, the 70s and the early 80s. And without a doubt, that was an influence. And I think my mom is just sort of a super duper creative force and someone who's definitely guided me and inspired me in all aspects of my career. And so they were definitely the biggest influencers for sure. And I think what's interesting too is growing up in High Point, because so many people are involved in the furniture industry, we grow up living with beautiful things, living in very beautiful spaces. And when you leave that and you go and you travel across the country and you see how the rest of the people are living, you really understand how much an influence of growing up here with the home furnishings industry in your backyard just absolutely focuses you and puts you on your path. And that's what happened for me.
So really from day one, you couldn't avoid it. You grew into this naturally.
Yeah, I did. And it's interesting because when I grew up here, I was very involved in the arts, and my mom was a founding member of the High Point Community Theater, and that played a big part of my childhood and growing up and being comfortable performing. And I really got the acting bug. And so during that time, I was also modeling locally in Greensboro or Winston-Salem or Charlotte. And so when I was 16, I had tortured my parents for years about saying, I really want to move to New York City and I want to model. And they were fabulous parents. And they said, we love that you want to move to New York City, but we don't want to move to New York City. And so they were incredible. And I had the opportunity to move to New York, and I finished high school at Professional Children's School in New York. And so I did have a different path before I came back to interior design and home furnishings. But for me, having that, influence so early on made it easy when I did come back to this as a career later down the road. It was instinctual.
Well, and probably in that part of your younger life, you were witnessing design, graphics, dealing with deadlines, all the wonderful things that come into play with interior design and designing products for sale.
Absolutely. And I think what was important too is my mom had the very creative side and the vision side, and my dad had very much the business side and the sales end. And he used to joke and say he was a rag peddler. He sold fabric. And so to have the influence of the creativity and the commerce has really helped me in starting my own business and building my brand. And it's definitely, trickled into the product design. And so when I'm designing a sofa or a chair, I'm not going to do something totally wacky and something completely crazy just to run it up the flagpole and see what happens. I'm doing this because I want to make money. And all of my licensing partnerships, whether it's Christorama or Bradburn or North Cape or Braxton Color, they all know that at the end of the day, yes, it's creative and it's fulfilling, but I want that quarterly check. Let's be honest. So mixing the creative and the commerce is always in the back of my mind. And, I don't really show a hot pink velvet sofa because as an interior designer, none of my real life clients want a hot pink velvet sofa.
Exactly.
They want a gray sofa. They want a brown sofa. They want a tan sofa. So it's designing for what my experience is out in the marketplace and all that one-on-one time with a consumer.
Well, and asking questions and so forth, you're totally right. My that brings me to a really good. That was a great segue to this thought. A question about how would you define your style? How did you come to what your style is as you grew?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I started, when I got into interior design, I kind of modeled and, acted and worked in movies and television and production and sort of wound my way back to interior design. And that happened via a makeover show on Fox called Design Invasion. And I auditioned for the show as the host, and they said, you would actually need to be the host and the interior designer. And so that brought me back to High Point really fast. So all the influence of growing up with design helped fuel that. And what was fascinating about that show was I would have 12 hours and $6,000 to make over a space I'd never really walked into. I would have just gotten some pictures and sort of, powered through it. And what was fascinating about it was it taught me to design for what the people wanted. I wasn't going in because I didn't have a Libby Langdon style at that point. I just wanted them to walk in and cry and be happy and jump up and down at the end of 12 hours and think I was a genius. And so what was fantastic was because everyone wanted something different. We shot all over the country. And one woman liked pineapples. One woman wanted a Moroccan room. One woman wanted like an Asian room. So it taught me to design for what the people wanted. And after I shot that show, it was 8 months traveling across the country and going into real people's homes across America, which was invaluable information. And at that point, I started my own design firm. That was when I started Libby Interiors. And so what ended up happening was I just started creating spaces that people would love. And so now what I would say that I have a brand and I'm, designing product and all of this, the three words that really embody what I do, it's easy, elegant, everyday style. And the easy is that's who I am. I'm approachable. I'm accessible. I'm not a big, highfalutin interior designer. And the elegant is you can have ease and you can have comfort, but it can still be elegant. And the everyday is that's who my clients are. They have kids, they have dogs, they have friends who drink red wine. The spaces have to really work for them. And so the easy, elegant, everyday style, that definitely embodies what I do and who I am.
Good answer. Good answer. In your career up to, let's say, when you launched Libby Interiors, Were there any mentors that you can identify along the way that kind of helped you behind the scenes or in front of the scenes even?
Oh my gosh, hands down, my mom. Oh, good grief. When I started doing that show on Fox, Design Invasion, I didn't have real measurements of the spaces. I had pictures and maybe a rough measurement. And she helped me. She would do the layouts for me and say, you can fit a sofa there, you can put 2 chairs there. And then it would be me and a PA for 2 days traveling around to every furniture store in Lubbock, Texas, saying, please, can I take this off your floor? So she, without a doubt, was a mentor and also just gave me confidence and said, you can do this. You're going to be able to do this. And if somebody tells you that long enough, you start to believe them.
Absolutely.
But it was an interesting time. And I used to joke, I would say, I'm not really an interior designer, but I play one on TV.
Yeah, unbelievable.
But she, without a doubt, really taught me about design and creating really warm and inviting spaces.
Coming back to what we were just talking about in the area of defining your style and kind of where you are with Libby Interiors Inc. and you're kind of coming in, at what point did you get approached or did you approach someone else about licensing collections and doing your own thing as far as designing product?
Interestingly enough, the second I started doing that first makeover show on Fox, I knew interior design was going to be my career. I was very focused on how could I make the most money as an interior designer. It was a late start in life for me to start that career. It was a second career, and I knew I wasn't going to be the Architectural Digest designer making that kind of money. So from the very beginning, I sat down and I wrote my goals. I wrote goals for the first year, goals for the second year, goal for 5 years, and goal for 10 years. So at the very onset of my career as an interior designer, I knew I wanted to get into licensing. And that was my 10-year goal. And I knew I was going to have to do a whole lot to get there because I was a nobody. I was just starting out. I didn't have anything to show for it. And so I was very focused at that point, knowing that that would be where I would really be able to make money. And I think I was also super focused with the direction of the licensing that I wanted to go in that I didn't want to be the designer that designs a $30,000 rug that you can only sell through interior design showrooms. No way, man. I want you to walk into the mom and pop retailer store and I want there to be a Libby Langdon sofa and a Libby Langdon outdoor chair and a Libby Langdon towel. And that was very clear to me that that's where the money would be made for me. And so at that point, I really started on the journey of building my brand. And it was everything from doing the website. But when I sat down and I wrote the goals out, I really wrote them out on paper. And I feel like when you do that, you're making yourself accountable. You're making it real. You're making yourself responsible. And so year 5, I said I would have needed to have written a book and done more television, which I did. I did a show on HGTV called Small Space, Big Style for 5 seasons. And from that show, I had accumulated so many small space tips. I thought, this is what I could write a book about. I can write a book about small spaces. And so I wrote a book called Libby Langdon, Small Space Solutions. And it was published, and going through the whole process, I had a book agent, and I kind of had this fantasy that, I'll come up with the treatment for the book, and then somebody will magically come in and write it. Wah, wah, that didn't happen. And what happened was I had to write it because I was the one who knew how to fill out all the talking points and the ideas as a designer. And so I really left my heart on the page, and it just became everything that I knew about interior design I covered. And what was incredible was the book was about to come out, and it was the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, and the publisher was sort of whining and saying, oh, the economy's tanked. This is a really bad time to launch a book. And I was like, it's a book about small spaces. People are downsizing. They need to live in the space they're in. Let's look at the positive side. And I actually had done a makeover for Glamour magazine, and they had me make over 3 girls' apartments, and all I could use was paint. These 3 girls' apartments were horrible. But I did this makeover for Glamour magazine, and a young producer from the Rachel Ray show read the article and contacted me and said, would you come on the show and do a makeover only using paint? Why, yes, I would. Would you mind promoting my book and giving a copy to every single one in the studio audience? And so that's what started it. And so I did the makeover for the Rachel Ray show, and the book was launched at that point. And then for the next 3 years, I did makeovers as Rachel's interior design buddy on the show. And so that was really helping me build my brand and feel more confident in being able to tackle a license and say, hey, I can get out and promote the sale of the product that I design. I'm not going to just sit there and say, oh, show me some sofas and I'll put my name on it. I was very invested in it, but I knew I had to really be offering something. So the combination of the media, the makeover television, as well as all the one-on-one time I spend sitting with clients and consumers all day, every day, and hearing what they like and what they don't like, that informs the product that I design.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that because you went, your eyes were open that first time you went out on that road trip, and you were meeting with all these people and seeing these homes that weren't like the homes you saw in High Point when you grew up.
No.
And suddenly you went, okay, I need to inform my decision making on what I'm seeing here, what they'll accept and what they'll live with and what they want to live with, what they want to be happy about.
Absolutely. And I think part of what I do as an interior designer, and I tell this to everyone who works with me, and sometimes I'll go speak to interior design graduating classes. And what I say is, as an interior designer, I'm a good listener first. That's what I am. I have to listen to what people want. And second, I'm a problem solver. It doesn't matter if someone's in a small space, or the husband likes blue and the wife likes yellow, or things show up and they're wrong. I'm a problem solver. And then third, I'm an interior designer. So I think, you have to sort of go at it with the attitude of, how can I make people's lives better? And how can I make them live in a comfortable way? And it was so much fun. I did an installation last week for a client in New Jersey. And I think also sometimes people think, oh, you only do huge projects. I'll make over somebody's living room. I don't care. I'm doing somebody's bedroom in New Jersey. So all work begets work in my mind. And so I did, Chris, my associate designer, and we installed a client's living room last week, and it had been empty for 2 years. They didn't know what to do, so they did nothing. And so we installed it, and it had 2 sofas and 8 chairs and a game table and a piano and all this artwork and all kinds of stuff. Oh my gosh, she was absolutely thrilled. And she just said, I can't imagine ever doing this. And she said, we're just going to love it. We're going to love it. And that's what it is. That's what my job is.
So the feeling you get from clients coming back to you like that's what it's all about for you.
Absolutely. That's where it begins and it ends. And I get the same feeling too when I'm on Instagram or Facebook and somebody's posted one of my lights in a job they've done, or a client, someone says, oh my gosh, I just got this sofa and I love it. And I look at my phone and I start screaming, oh my gosh, that's my sofa. So I think you can't get lost on what the end user experience is.
When you say your process, starts with listening, really. And I would imagine that in the development of a product line with under license with any of the manufacturers you're currently working with and maybe some future ones, I'm guessing that starts with listening and a real repartee between you and them. You both kind of get it. It's got to sell. But ultimately, you also have to kind of know what the direction is they're headed with their product line before you kind of step in with your little.
Absolutely. And for me, I would say with all of my partners, it was important to start to collaborate with a company that wasn't already doing what I wanted to do.
Yes.
At that point, you're cannibalizing the product. You're not bringing new customers. You're cutting into existing business. And that, for me, is of no interest. So, when I partnered with Braxton Color, it was about bringing a sleeker, cleaner, just not modern, but just a different take on transitional, leaner, just very clean, very comfortable. When I partnered with Christorama, they were really known for very ornate, gilded, big chandeliers and crystals. And oh boy, they did not need me to bring one more crystal chandelier to their whole offering. So to do things that were polished nickel or oiled rubbed bronze and a little bit more contemporary lines and something that just was going to bring them a new audience, that's part of the fun. And same with Bradburn Gallery Home. They're very known for their traditional accessories and lighting and lamps and accent furniture. So to bring an aesthetic to them that was something that was just completely different was exciting. And I think at that point, you're also giving the manufacturer a story to tell. And I think, and same with North Cape, they were used to doing very large woven, structured pieces. And so for me to bring something that had a little bit of a softer line or using a weave in a different way or mixing materials or just breaking it up a little bit, it gives a story to tell. And I think as manufacturers, people are always looking to how can we bring business? How can we change our business? How can we grow? How can we continue to move forward in this web-driven Alexa-driven Amazon world, and I think you can craft a good story if you partner with a designer who has a real point of view.
With all the work you've been doing, all the wonderful TV experiences, the book, the success of the book, what followed up after that, I'm sure along the way, as with all of us, there were a couple of stumbles or two, great success here, whoop, a little failure there.
Yeah.
Can you tell me any cool story about that sort of thing?
Oh gosh, yes. When I knew I wanted to get into licensing, I had the opportunity to work with IMG, a big licensing agency out of Los Angeles. And I thought, oh man, this is awesome. This is what I needed. I need the licensing agent that manages Tiger Woods and Serena Williams. This is going to be perfect. So I had written my book about small spaces and said, I think I'd like to do a line of small space multifunctional furniture. Brilliant. They thought it was brilliant. I came up with all these totally harebrained schemes of, it was, Clark Kent by day and Superman by night, and a table that, it could be a bench, it could be a chair, it could be a dining table, it could also be a bar, all these crazy things. There were all these moving parts. And at the end of the day, it wasn't going to work because it was going to be so expensive that if someone could afford to buy this piece of furniture, they obviously could afford a very large, grand space. So that was an epic fail. And for me, it was also a refocus too, to learn that someone wasn't going to do this for me. An agent wasn't going to do this for me. I was going to have to do it myself. And that was a bummer, but but at the end of the day, I think what was empowering about it was I can do this, and I just need to chip away at it. And I came up with my mantra, which was 3 things a week. And 3 things a week is, if you have your goals set, your 1-year goal, your 5-year goal, your 10-year goal, and you do 3 things a week to reach that 10-year goal, oh my gosh, if you even get to your 5-year goal, you'll be thrilled. So, but 3 things a week. And so 3 things a week for me, as a designer, as someone wanting to work in licensing, it could be photographing a project and promoting it on my website. It could be creating a postcard that I could hand out with my designs. It could be, calling different media outlets. But 3 things a week has helped me to get to where I am right now. And I think if you realize no one else is going to magically hand you the golden key to the door, you got to kind of kick the door open yourself. That's the way you'll make things happen.
There are many people still out there looking for that key, and I don't think they're going to ever find it.
No, you're not going to find that key.
Well, what do you feel about bringing things up to today? And we just had a market recently. What's your feeling about trends in the industry now versus, when the book came out and things were tanking in the furniture business, and now we've come out of that. We're kind of heading up the slope of success a little bit more as an economy. What do you see the trends heading in this industry right now?
I mean, what I see is I see technology affecting how we're living in our spaces. Technology affects how we sit in our furniture.
Yeah, you're right.
I have clients
or slumping
now.
In my case.
Exactly. They're not sitting in a sofa. They're sort of splaying out in a sofa. So that's something that I'm seeing that manufacturers are going to need to answer the call to. They're also going to need to craft that story. And what are they offering and how are they offering it? I do think that this is a great time in interior design. The consumer is more aware of what a beautiful space looks like now more than ever before. And I would credit that to reality television. The Real Housewives of wherever, they all live in pretty groovy houses, and people are sitting there and they're watching it and they're saying, I like those throw pillows. I might do a red accent wall. And that's good news for us. That's good news for the interior design industry and the furniture industry. I also think that visually things are accessible to people via websites like Houzz, Pinterest, things like that. Beautiful imagery is something that it's become very aspirational. And I think it's important for manufacturers to figure out how to let people know that they're offering that. And I think to not grow with these times and not change with these times, you will get left behind. You just will. We're seeing it now in the clothing industry. If you walk into a clothing store, it might be you and a few other people, but if you go online, somebody's in their pajamas at 2 a.m. ordering up a storm with free shipping, and if they don't like it, they can ship it back. So the furniture industry is next in that, but there's a way to guard against it because people still want to kick the tires and sit in furniture.
And trends are happening, it seems to me, much faster than they've happened before. Of course, speed to market is quicker now, but more importantly, thank God we're out of the sea of brown
absolutely
safety area in furniture, and we're starting to push the envelope a little bit in style, in color, in texture.
Yeah,
I think you're seeing that come along.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's fun is a trend that I'm seeing with the consumer is because they're so stimulated by beautiful design, they're more willing to take chances. There was a big fear factor there for a long time, which I think was why we were living in the tanification of the United States. And so now that people are saying, well, I wouldn't mind living with an orange chair, or I'm okay with the combination, so I think seeing that is great. Another trend that I think I'm seeing is that it's the rise of the interior designer is what it is. Consumers are realizing that they don't have to pay $10,000 for a window treatment. They're designers that that want to work with them and want to work on a budget, and they'll do their dining room and they'll do their living room, and that's fine, so designers are really driving the industry right now, and it's a great thing, and I think the story for an interior designer is, hey, I'm going to save you money, I'm going to save you time, and I'm going to leave and your room's going to be done. You're not going to be piecemealing it. And so I think if manufacturers can find ways to work with designers and promote their product and their ease of working with designers, I'm telling you, I'm at a waiting list. Almost all of my friends that are designers are at a waiting list. We can't take on any more jobs. We can't.
Well, speaking of driving the business, interior design and design driving the business these days, where is Libby Langdon driving to next? Where are you headed? Where's that little 5 and 10 year list of three times a week, 3 items a week? Where are you going next? Where can we see you?
Yeah, 3 things a week. Who thought of that? It's interesting. I feel like I've tackled a lot of the goals, the 10-year goals, and so now I'm almost in a refocus of my interior design business. And it's an exciting point. It's a little bit scary point. It's growing. And as I say, we're at a waiting list. There are no more Libbys in my office. We're busting at the seams. So we're about to move to a larger space, and I've hired more staff. And I think the idea is to see how can I grow that business. And I've done several restaurants, and I'd like to do some more commercial business.
I saw a video recently of you pitching the restaurant that you used to. It's very good. And it looked like the food tasted great too.
It's amazing. It's so good. So yeah, to sort of look inward now at this point and grow Libby Interiors, I think is the next step.
Good point. Well, now speaking of that and growing from within and so forth, I'd like to ask you, now speaking to our audience a little bit more directly, what would be your advice to someone perhaps listening to this who's on their way to school, on their way to classes, or they're just about to hang their shingle up, whether it be a furnishings designer or an interior designer? What advice might you give them to think about and inspire them a little?
Embrace fearlessness.
Ooh, that's really good. That's
really
good.
The biggest thing for me.
Excellent.
Before I got into interior design, when I worked in acting and I worked in film and television, and there was always an underlying fear. You needed somebody to want you. You needed somebody to like you. You needed somebody to accept you. You needed someone to say, you're the right person for the job. So there was always this underlying fear. And when I got into interior design and I started doing makeover TV, and I was able just to be Libby, I wasn't pretending to be somebody else. I wasn't playing somebody else. I was being myself. And when I did that, and just embraced fearlessness and thought, what is the worst thing that could happen? They're not going to eat me. It's going to all be okay. It helped me take chances that I never would have otherwise. And if I still had that underlying fear, I don't think I'd be sitting here with you today. So fearlessness for me, if people can take that, adopt it, and put it into all aspects of your business, you'll be shocked at the things that you'll take chances at and the things you'll try. And you don't worry what people are going to say about you. You just go out there and do it. And that's when great things happen. So my recommendation would be embrace fearlessness.
Well, on that note, Libby, I should say, on that note, fearless Libby, thank you so much for being with us today on Design Between the Lines. It's been a pleasure having you and having you back in your hometown, High Point. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
I'd like to thank Libby Langdon for joining me to discuss her unique journey to becoming an interior and furniture designer, how crafting a lifestyle brand can be a powerful asset, and her advice to students just starting out in the home furnishings industry. Design Between the Lines is produced by Element Studio with the American Society of Furniture Designers. We're recorded in High Point, North Carolina. To learn more about ASFD, visit asfd.com. And don't forget to subscribe to hear more industry stories of design between the lines.